She had always been the kind of person who put others before herself. Every day she woke up before sunrise, brewed a quick cup of tea and prepared for long hours at the hospital. It wasn't an easy job. Nurses never got the appreciation they truly deserved. The shifts were exhausting, sometimes stretching into nights when the world outside had gone quiet. But inside the hospital, the lights never dimmed. She had grown used to the constant beeping of monitors, the hurried footsteps in the hallways, and the nervous voices of patients and families. But she loved her work because in every small gesture, whether it was holding a patient's hand during a difficult moment or calming a scared family member, she could make a difference. That was what kept her going. Over the years, she had seen almost everything a hospital could throw at a nurse. People in pain, people in joy, people who came in barely alive and left smiling again. Each day carried a story, some sad, some hopeful, and some unforgettable. She had witnessed miracles and heartbreaks alike, and she had always felt proud to be part of someone else's journey, even if it meant sacrificing her own comfort. But life has a way of reminding you that even the strongest hearts can face sudden storms. That morning had started like any other. She was late for her shift, rushing down the crowded streets with her bag slung over her shoulder. The air was crisp, and a few early commuters nodded at her politely as she passed. At the hospital, the chaos of the emergency ward greeted her immediately. She moved quickly, attending to patients, coordinating with doctors, checking charts, and offering comfort where it was needed. By midday, she was exhausted but kept pushing. There was no room for weakness in her line of work. She had learned that the hard way. It was around 2 p.m. when her supervisor called her into the office. Something in the tone of the voice on the other side of the door immediately made her uneasy. She walked in, trying to mask the worry growing in her chest. The office smelled faintly of coffee and paperwork, a familiar scent she had come to associate with long discussions and hospital meetings. "We need to talk," her supervisor began, avoiding her eyes. "It's about the staffing situation. The board has decided to cut costs, and unfortunately we have to let some people go." Her heart skipped a beat. She had worked here for years. She had given everything to this hospital. "How could they do this? I don't understand," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know this is hard. You've been an incredible nurse, but the decision is final," the supervisor said gently. "We are very sorry." It felt like the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. She tried to stay composed, but inside a storm was raging. How could it be that after all those years of dedication, she was suddenly being told she no longer had a place? She left the office without another word, each step heavier than the last. The hospital corridors, usually bustling with life, now felt alien and empty. She passed patients and colleagues, their faces blurred by the fog of her disbelief and anger. Outside, the city was as busy as ever. People moved in a constant flow, unaware of the inner turmoil she was facing. She wandered for a while, unsure where to go, her mind replaying every moment of her career, every patient she had helped, every life she had touched. She thought about her small apartment, her bills, and the uncertainty of tomorrow. What would she do now? How would she support herself? After a while, she found herself in a quiet park, a place she had sometimes come to during lunch breaks to breathe. She sat on a bench, looking at the children playing in the distance and the elderly couple walking slowly along the path. The world moved on around her, indifferent to the storm she felt inside. She tried to take comfort in the fact that she had made a difference, that her work mattered. But the fear and sadness pressed down heavily. She felt a wave of helplessness that was unfamiliar. As she sat there lost in thought, she noticed a young man jogging through the park. He seemed fit and healthy, full of energy and life. She couldn't help but smile faintly at the contrast. Him so full of vitality, and her feeling so drained and defeated. She closed her eyes for a moment, trying to calm herself. Maybe, she thought, this is just a moment. Maybe things will get better. But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life had suddenly tilted, and she was struggling to find solid ground. After some time, she got up and decided to walk a bit. The air was cool against her face, and the sound of leaves rustling in the breeze felt soothing. She passed a small cafe and saw people laughing, chatting over coffee. Life continued as if nothing had changed, and she realized how fragile her own sense of stability was. For years, she had taken pride in being independent and relying on her own skills and effort, but in a single moment, the world had reminded her that nothing is guaranteed. She kept walking, her thoughts drifting between memories of her patients and fears of her uncertain future. She remembered the elderly woman she had cared for last week, who had thanked her with tears in her eyes. She remembered the little boy who had been scared of injections, and how she had gently talked him through it until he smiled again. These moments, small as they were, made her feel alive, made her feel that her presence mattered. And yet now it all felt fragile, as if the universe had a cruel sense of irony, giving her the chance to save lives one day, and taking away her own security the next. Eventually, she found herself near a quiet street away from the busy roads and honking cars. She paused, leaning against a lamppost, letting her mind wander. She thought about calling someone, her sister, a friend, but she didn't want to burden anyone with her problems. She had always been the helper, the strong one, the one people relied on. Asking for help felt foreign to her, almost uncomfortable. So she stood there silently, watching the world go by, trying to steady her emotions. Minutes passed, and then she saw a small commotion up ahead. A man was walking briskly, clutching his chest, his face pale and strained. Something in her instincts, the nurse in her, told her something was wrong. She started running toward him, adrenaline kicking in despite her own exhaustion. The world around her seemed to blur as she reached his side. He was sweating profusely, barely able to speak, and his legs were trembling. Without hesitation, she knelt beside him. Her hands moved with practiced precision, checking his pulse, making sure he was breathing. She asked questions, but he could barely respond. Panic and fear were in his eyes, and she felt a surge of determination. Even though her life had taken a harsh turn just hours ago, she knew what she had to do. Saving a life didn't wait for circumstances. People started to gather, watching, unsure of how to help. She ignored the murmurs and focused entirely on the man in front of her. She guided him to sit down, reassured him with calm words, and prepared to administer first aid if necessary. Her mind worked methodically, recalling every piece of training she had ever learned. She remembered the drills, the lessons, the countless nights at the hospital when she had faced emergencies. All of it came flooding back in that one moment. By the time an ambulance arrived, she had stabilized him as best as she could. The paramedics nodded in appreciation, quickly taking over, and she stepped back, letting them do their work. She watched as he was lifted onto the stretcher, his eyes briefly meeting hers. There was a silent gratitude in that gaze, and for the first time that day she felt a spark of hope. Despite losing her job, despite feeling lost and unappreciated, she had still made a difference. As the ambulance disappeared down the street, she stood there breathing heavily, her heart pounding not just from the exertion, but from a strange mix of fear and fulfillment. The world was uncertain. Her life had been shaken, but at that moment she realized something important. No matter what happened, her purpose didn't vanish. Helping someone, even a stranger, reminded her of who she was at her core. She wasn't defined by a job title or a paycheck. She was defined by the compassion and courage she carried within her. And though she didn't know it yet, that single act of selflessness would change her life in ways she could never imagine. Life, she realized, had a strange way of rewarding those who never stopped caring, even when the world seemed unfair. The nurse walked home slowly, her mind still replaying what had happened. She couldn't stop thinking about the man she had helped. Even though she was exhausted, a strange energy kept her moving forward. For the first time since losing her job, she felt useful again. She realized that her worth wasn't measured by her employment status but by the lives she touched. When she arrived at her small apartment, she collapsed onto the couch, letting out a long sigh. The room was quiet, filled only with the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sounds of the city. She thought about the man, wondering if he would be okay. She had done everything she could, but in moments like this, worry often lingered. She had spent years taking care of patients, but now she understood how it felt to feel helpless, to watch someone else struggle while you waited for help to arrive. The next morning, sunlight streamed through her window, waking her earlier than usual. She made a cup of tea and sat by the window, staring at the street below. People hurried by, their lives moving on without pause while she sat quietly reflecting on the events of the previous day. She thought about what she could do next. Losing her job had shaken her confidence, but helping that man reminded her that she still had skills that mattered. As she sipped her tea, her phone rang. It was an unknown number. She hesitated before answering, unsure if she should pick up. Something in her gut told her it might be important. "Hello?" she said cautiously. "Good morning." A calm, confident voice replied. "I am calling to thank you for what you did yesterday. You saved a life, and I wanted to make sure you knew how grateful we are." She blinked, surprised. I was just doing my job. Anyone would have helped." "No," the voice said firmly. "Not everyone would have. You acted quickly, calmly, and without hesitation. That is why I am reaching out personally. I want to meet you if that's possible." Her heart skipped a beat. She had never experienced anything like this before. She agreed, feeling a mix of curiosity and nervousness. The call ended and she sat there staring at her cup of tea. She wondered who this person was and why they were contacting her. Later that day, she received another call from the same person. This time, they arranged to meet at a quiet cafe in the city. She dressed carefully, choosing simple but neat clothes. She wanted to make a good impression, though she didn't fully understand why. Her mind raced with questions. Was this man connected to the person she helped? Was he going to offer a reward, or was it something more complicated? When she arrived at the cafe, she saw a man sitting at a table by the window. He looked calm and collected, but there was a warmth in his eyes. She approached and greeted him politely. "Thank you for meeting me," he said, standing up to shake her hand. "I wanted to express my gratitude in person. Yesterday you didn't just help me. You reminded me of the goodness in people." She felt a blush rise to her cheeks. "I was just doing what I thought was right." "That's exactly why it matters," he replied. "You didn't think about recognition or reward. You acted because it was the right thing to do. That's rare, and it's something I deeply respect." They talked for a while, and she learned that he was a businessman who often traveled alone and incognito to avoid public attention. He had been in the city for personal matters when he experienced the medical emergency. Listening to him talk, she realized he was genuine, not just offering empty thanks. As the conversation continued, he mentioned that he wanted to help her. She felt her stomach twist with confusion. I don't understand," she said. "I know you've recently lost your job," he said gently. "I can only imagine how difficult that must be. I want to offer you an opportunity, not just for financial help, but a chance to continue making a difference in the world. You have a rare gift, and it shouldn't go unnoticed." She shook her head, overwhelmed. "I don't know what to say. I've been struggling, yes, but I never expected something like this." "You don't have to say anything now," he said kindly. "I just want you to know that your actions have meaning, and there are people who see it. I will make arrangements to help you in a way that is meaningful, not just temporary." She left the cafe feeling a mixture of disbelief and hope. For the first time in days, she smiled without restraint. She realized that her life, despite the hardships, had not lost its purpose. She remembered the faces of patients she had helped in the past and felt a renewed sense of determination. Over the next few hours, she walked through the city, reflecting on what had happened. She passed by a playground and paused to watch the children laughing and playing. Life was unpredictable, she thought, but it also had moments of profound beauty. She realized that sometimes the smallest actions could have the greatest impact. A simple decision to help someone in need could ripple outward in ways she might never fully understand. That evening, she returned home and tried to rest, but sleep did not come easily. Her mind was alive with thoughts of the meeting, the man, and the possibilities that lay ahead. She felt a mix of anxiety and excitement, a strange combination that made it difficult to settle. She realized that she had been living in a kind of survival mode, focused on daily routines and immediate responsibilities. Now, for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to imagine a future that was not defined by fear or scarcity. As she drifted off to sleep, she felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in weeks. She knew the road ahead would not be easy. There would still be challenges, uncertainty, and hard decisions, but she also knew that she was not alone. There were people who recognized her value, who appreciated her courage, and who wanted to support her in meaningful ways. The following morning, she woke up early, feeling unusually refreshed. She decided to take a walk before the city fully woke. The air was crisp and the streets were quiet, allowing her to think clearly. She reflected on her life, her choices, and her experiences as a nurse. She realized that despite losing her job, she had never truly lost her sense of purpose. Helping others was not something she did for recognition or reward. It was simply who she was. As she walked, she noticed a small commotion ahead. A man had fallen near the sidewalk, clutching his chest and gasping for air. Her instincts kicked in immediately. Without hesitation, she ran toward him, her heart pounding. She knelt beside him, assessing the situation with practiced precision. She checked his pulse, ensured he was breathing, and guided him to a safer position. She spoke to him calmly, her voice steady and reassuring even though her own body was tense with urgency. A small crowd had gathered, unsure of how to help. She ignored the murmurs and focused entirely on the man in front of her. Her hands moved quickly, stabilizing him until paramedics arrived. When the ambulance doors closed behind him, she felt a wave of relief wash over her. She had done it again. Saved a life just as she had saved the man the day before. Walking back home, she felt a strange mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. She realized that no matter what happened in her life, she would always find ways to make a difference. Her compassion, skill, and courage were her true strengths, and no job loss could take that away. Later that day, her phone rang again. It was the businessman. "I wanted to check in," he said warmly.
"How are you feeling?"
She smiled despite her fatigue. "Tired, but okay. I think I understand now why you reached out. You wanted me to know that my actions matter, even when life feels uncertain." "That's exactly right," he replied. "You've shown me and many others that true courage and kindness still exist. I am arranging something that will ensure you continue to have opportunities to make a difference in ways you might not even expect." She felt a tear slip down her cheek. She was overwhelmed by gratitude, not just for the help he was offering, but for the acknowledgement of her values and her work. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen, truly seen, for who she was and what she could do. That night, she lay in bed, thinking about the sequence of events over the past 2 days. Losing her job had felt like the end of the world, but it had also set the stage for something unexpected. It reminded her that life could be unpredictable, that moments of despair could quickly turn into opportunities for growth and recognition. She realized that her actions, no matter how small they seemed at the time, could have far-reaching consequences. As sleep finally embraced her, she felt a quiet certainty. Life had a way of rewarding those who acted with integrity, courage, and compassion. And though she didn't know exactly what the future held, she knew she would face it with the same determination and selflessness that had guided her throughout her career. She had learned that true strength was not in holding a title or a position, but in the ability to remain kind, resilient, and compassionate, even in the face of uncertainty. And with that thought, she drifted into a peaceful sleep, unaware that the next 24 hours would bring surprises that would change her life forever. The next morning, the nurse woke up to a sense of anticipation she hadn't felt in weeks. The events of the past 2 days had left her mind racing with thoughts and possibilities. She got out of bed slowly, still feeling the lingering fatigue from her long shifts at the hospital and the adrenaline of the emergencies she had faced. Yet there was a lightness in her heart she couldn't ignore, a feeling that perhaps life was about to turn in a new, unexpected direction. She made her tea and sat by the window looking out at the quiet street below. People were starting their day, children running to school, vendors setting up their stalls, and commuters hurrying to catch buses. Life was moving forward as it always did, and she felt like a small part of it, ready to take her next step. She had never been one to wait passively for opportunities, but these past days had taught her that sometimes the universe had a way of stepping in when one least expected it. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from the businessman she had met a day earlier. She opened it with curiosity and found a simple line. "I would like you to come with me today. I have something important to show you. Please be ready by noon." Her heart raced. What could he possibly want to show her? She spent the next few hours preparing, choosing comfortable but presentable clothing and thinking about what might await her. She felt a mix of excitement and anxiety, unsure whether this would be a simple meeting or the start of something that could change her life. By noon, she was standing outside the agreed location, a quiet, elegant building tucked away from the busy streets. She took a deep breath and stepped inside. The interior was tastefully decorated, calm, and welcoming. She was led to a room where the man was waiting, and his face lit up when he saw her. "Thank you for coming," he said warmly. "I know this might seem sudden, but I promise it's nothing you need to worry about." She nodded, trying to hide the flutter of nerves in her stomach. He gestured toward a table where several envelopes and small packages were neatly arranged. "Yesterday, when you saved my life, it reminded me of the power of selflessness. It made me realize that people like you, People who act without expecting anything in return deserve to be recognized and supported. Her hands trembled slightly as she approached the table. She picked up an envelope and opened it, finding a note inside. It read, "For your courage, compassion, and dedication. May this help you continue to make a difference." She looked up at him, speechless. He smiled gently. "I don't want you to feel obligated, but I also want to make sure you understand how deeply your actions have touched me. These are not just gifts, they are opportunities for you to continue doing what you love, without the burden of immediate financial worry." Tears welled up in her eyes. She had never imagined anything like this. She had spent so many days worrying about bills, rent, and her uncertain future, never expecting that one act of kindness could lead to such generosity. She felt gratitude and disbelief mingling in equal measure. Over the next hour, he explained his plan. He wanted to give her the chance to continue her work, not only as a nurse but in broader ways that could impact more lives. He mentioned supporting her further education, helping her start initiatives for healthcare in underserved communities, and even connecting her with influential people who could amplify her efforts. She listened in awe. The scope of what he was offering was overwhelming. For so long she had felt invisible, struggling to keep her head above water, and now someone was acknowledging her skills and dedication in a way that went far beyond a simple thank you. It was as if the universe had decided to reward her in a way she could have never imagined. After the meeting, she walked home slowly, her mind buzzing. She couldn't stop thinking about the possibilities. Her apartment, which had felt small and confining just days ago, now seemed like a place of potential. She imagined herself helping more people, using her skills and knowledge to make a difference in ways she had never dared to dream before. That evening, she decided to take a walk in the park to clear her mind. The sky was painted with shades of orange and pink as the sun began to set. Families strolled along the paths, children played with their pets, and couples walked hand in hand. She felt a sense of peace as she observed the world around her. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to feel truly hopeful. As she walked, she reflected on the past weeks, the loss of her job, the unexpected emergencies, and now this incredible turn of events. Life had been harsh, but it had also been generous in ways she had never anticipated. She realized that her own courage and selflessness had set the stage for these changes, and it gave her a renewed sense of confidence in her abilities and her purpose. Suddenly, her phone buzzed again. She glanced at it and saw a message. "I have arranged a small surprise for you at your home tonight. Don't worry, it's nothing dangerous, just something to show how much your actions are appreciated." Her curiosity was piqued. She had no idea what to expect. By the time she arrived home, she was filled with anticipation and a little nervousness. She unlocked the door and stepped inside. At first, everything seemed normal, but then she heard the sound of engines outside. Peeking through the window, she saw something that made her eyes widen. One by one, luxury cars started pulling up in front of her building. Sleek, polished vehicles with drivers waiting patiently. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. Her heart pounded with a mixture of shock and disbelief. A soft knock on the door startled her. She opened it to find a messenger with a card in hand. She took the card and read the message. "For your courage, selflessness, and the lives you have touched. These are tokens of our appreciation. Thank you for being the light in the darkest moments." Tears streamed down her face. She couldn't believe what was happening. She had never sought recognition or rewards for her work, and yet here was this overwhelming display of gratitude. She felt a mix of joy, humility, and disbelief. Over the next few minutes, she realized that the cars and gifts were from the businessman and the people he had informed about her heroism. They wanted to ensure that she was not only recognized but also supported in a way that allowed her to continue her work without worry. It was an incredible gesture, one that she would never forget. She spent the rest of the evening reflecting on the events. Life had a way of surprising her in ways she could never anticipate. Just a few days ago, she had been struggling to cope with the loss of her job, feeling uncertain about her future. Now she was being offered opportunities, recognition and support beyond anything she had imagined. As night fell, she sat by the window, looking at the cars parked outside and the world moving silently around her. She felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for the material gifts, but for the acknowledgement of her courage, her compassion, and her dedication. She realized that true kindness and selflessness are never wasted. They always ripple outward, sometimes returning in ways that are unexpected and profound. She thought about the people she had helped over the years, the moments of fear and relief, the tiny victories that often went unnoticed, and now she understood that each act of courage, no matter how small, could have far-reaching consequences. Her life had changed dramatically, and yet she remained grounded, aware that her purpose was not about recognition or wealth, but about continuing to help others in meaningful ways. Before going to bed, she wrote in her journal, documenting the whirlwind of events that had transformed her life in less than a week. She reflected on the lessons she had learned, that courage and compassion are powerful, that selflessness can open doors in unexpected ways, and that even in moments of despair, hope can emerge. As she closed her journal, she felt a sense of calm and determination. She knew that the future would bring challenges, but she also knew that she had the strength, skills, and support to face them. The journey that had begun with uncertainty and loss had turned into a story of courage, gratitude, and unexpected opportunity. She drifted off to sleep, her heart full of hope, knowing that the next days would continue to unfold in ways she could never have imagined, but that she was ready to embrace whatever came her way. The nurse woke up the next morning still feeling the weight of disbelief. She could hardly believe what had happened the night before. Luxury cars parked outside her building, messages of gratitude and gifts she had never expected. Her life had taken a turn she could never have imagined. Yet even amidst the shock and excitement, a part of her remained grounded. She knew that her true purpose had always been to help people, and now she realized that the world had found a way to acknowledge her efforts in a way she had never dared to dream. She made herself a cup of tea and sat by the window, looking at the street below. The cars from last night were gone now, but the memory of them lingered, filling her mind with questions and possibilities. She felt a mixture of gratitude and humility. For so long she had struggled quietly, giving everything she had to her work without expecting anything in return. And now life seemed to be rewarding her selflessness in ways she had never imagined. As she prepared to leave her apartment, her phone buzzed with messages. Friends and neighbors were sending her curious texts, having noticed the cars and the unusual activity around her home the night before. She smiled, a bit embarrassed, but also touched by the attention. She realized that what had started as a simple act of kindness had begun to ripple outward, affecting people in ways she could never have predicted. She decided to take a walk before heading out, wanting to clear her mind and reflect on everything that had happened. The morning air was crisp and the streets were slowly filling with people going about their daily routines. She walked past familiar shops and parks, feeling a strange sense of connection to the city around her. Everything seemed brighter, more alive, as if the world itself was acknowledging her courage and resilience. As she walked, she thought about the man she had helped, the businessman who had reached out to her personally. She realized that his gesture went far beyond a simple thank you. He had recognized her value, not just as a nurse, but as a person capable of making a difference in the world. She felt a renewed sense of purpose, understanding that her skills, compassion, and courage were not limited to a hospital ward. They could have a much wider impact. Later that afternoon, she received a call from him again. His voice was warm and inviting. "I wanted to invite you to a small gathering," he said. "Some people I know would like to meet you, to personally thank you for your bravery and dedication. It will be very informal, nothing overwhelming." She hesitated for a moment, feeling nervous about meeting strangers, but curiosity and a sense of anticipation pushed her to agree. She spent the next few hours preparing, choosing a simple yet elegant outfit and trying to calm her nerves. She reminded herself that she had faced emergencies, helped people in critical moments, and acted with courage when it mattered most. This was simply another experience, and she could handle it. When she arrived at the gathering, she was welcomed warmly. The room was filled with people from different walks of life, some well-known philanthropists, some business leaders, and a few community organizers. All of them had heard about her actions and wanted to meet the woman who had saved a life so selflessly. She felt a mix of shyness and pride as they greeted her with smiles, handshakes, and words of gratitude. One by one, they spoke to her, sharing how her actions had inspired them. Some talked about the importance of selflessness, others about courage, and a few mentioned how rare it was to see someone act purely out of compassion without expecting anything in return. She listened quietly, feeling overwhelmed by the recognition. She had never sought attention, and yet here she was being celebrated for something she had done naturally, out of instinct and care. During the gathering, the businessman approached her with a gentle smile. "I wanted you to see this," he said, leading her to a small room where several documents and plans were laid out. "These are opportunities I've arranged for you. Scholarships, support for further training, and even initiatives that will allow you to impact more lives through healthcare programs and community projects." She looked at the documents, feeling a mixture of disbelief and gratitude. Her heart raced as she realized the magnitude of what was being offered. For so long she had worried about finances, survival, and the uncertainty of her future. Now she was being given resources, guidance, and opportunities that would allow her to continue her passion on a much larger scale. It was overwhelming yet exhilarating. Over the next few hours she spoke with several of the guests, learning about the ways she could expand her impact. Ideas flowed naturally. Programs to provide medical care in underserved areas, workshops to train young healthcare workers, and partnerships with organizations that shared her vision. She realized that her life was no longer limited by circumstances or fear. She had the chance to create something meaningful, to touch countless lives, and to leave a lasting legacy of compassion. As the gathering came to an end, she stepped outside, into the cool evening air, her mind buzzing with excitement. The city lights sparkled, reflecting in her eyes as she walked home slowly. She thought about her journey, from the uncertainty of losing her job, to the moment she helped a man in need, to the incredible recognition and opportunities that now awaited her. Life had tested her, challenged her, and yet it had also rewarded her in ways she could never have imagined. Back at her apartment, she sat by the window, sipping tea and reflecting on the events of the day. She realized that the luxury cars, the gifts, and the recognition were not the most important aspects of her journey. What mattered most was the affirmation that her compassion, courage, and dedication had meaning. She had acted without expectation, and yet the world had found a way to acknowledge her efforts, showing her that selflessness does not go unnoticed. As night fell, she thought about the future. She could now see a path that was filled with opportunities to make a real difference in people's lives. She could expand her work beyond the hospital, help communities in need, and inspire others to act with courage and compassion. The possibilities seemed endless, and for the first time in a long while, she felt truly empowered. Despite the overwhelming changes, she remained grounded. She knew that true fulfillment did not come from gifts, recognition, or wealth. It came from living a life of purpose, from helping others, and from staying true to her values. The past few days had reminded her of that truth, and she felt a deep sense of gratitude for the journey, for the people who had supported her, and for the unexpected ways life had rewarded her courage. She spent the rest of the evening planning her next steps, thinking carefully about how to use the resources and opportunities she had been given. She wanted to make sure that her actions continued to have a positive impact, that every decision she made would contribute to the well-being of others. She realized that her life had changed not just because of material gifts, but because of the recognition of her character, her values, and her commitment to helping others. Before going to bed, she took a moment to reflect on the journey that had brought her here. Losing her job had been painful, but it had also set the stage for something extraordinary. Saving a life, acting selflessly, and remaining courageous had opened doors she could never have imagined. She realized that challenges and setbacks often come not to defeat us, but to prepare us for greater opportunities. As she lay in bed, she felt a sense of peace and fulfillment that she had not experienced in a long time. She knew that the road ahead would still have obstacles, but she also knew that she had the strength, determination, and support to face whatever came her way. Her life had been transformed not just by fortune, but by the recognition of her own values and the impact of her courage and compassion. In that quiet moment, she made a promise to herself to continue helping others, to remain true to her principles, and to use the opportunities she had been given to make a difference in as many lives as possible. The luxury cars, the gifts, and the recognition were symbols of gratitude, but her true reward would always be the lives she touched, and the hope she could inspire in others. She closed her eyes, feeling a deep sense of gratitude and determination. Life had given her a second chance, a new beginning, and the tools to expand her impact in ways she had never imagined. And as sleep finally embraced her, she felt ready to embrace the future, knowing that her journey of courage, compassion, and selflessness was only just beginning. The nurse woke up that morning with a sense of calm excitement she hadn't felt in years. Life had changed in ways she never imagined, and she could feel it in every part of her being. The events of the past week, the loss of her job, the emergencies she had faced, the recognition she had received, and the incredible opportunities now opening to her, had left her mind racing with thoughts, ideas, and possibilities. She sat by the window sipping her morning tea, feeling the warmth spread through her body. For the first time in a long while, she felt truly alive and hopeful about her future. She looked out at the street below, watching people go about their daily routines. Children ran to school with backpacks bouncing on their shoulders. Vendors arranged fresh fruits and vegetables in neat piles, and commuters hurried to catch buses. Life moved forward, as it always did, and she realized that she was a part of it in a new, meaningful way. Her purpose was no longer limited to her past job or a hospital ward. It extended far beyond that. She had a chance to make a real difference in the world, and it excited her to think about what was possible. That day, she decided to visit the community center where she had once volunteered. The place had always felt special to her, a small space filled with hope, learning, and the desire to help others. Now, with the opportunities and support she had received, she realized she could do much more. As she walked through the doors, she was greeted warmly by the staff, who remembered her dedication and kindness from before. They had heard about the recognition she had received, and their eyes shone with admiration. She spent the morning talking with the staff, brainstorming ideas for programs that could help people in need. She envisioned workshops to train young healthcare workers, outreach programs to provide medical care in underserved areas, and educational sessions to teach people about basic health and safety. She felt energized as she shared her ideas, and the staff listened attentively, excited about the potential impact. For the first time, she realized that her experience, skills, and compassion could be leveraged to touch not just one life, but hundreds, perhaps even thousands. By midday, she received a call from the businessman who had first reached out to her. His voice was warm and encouraging. "I wanted to check in," he said. "I hope everything is going well. I also have a meeting arranged later today with a few people who are very interested in supporting the initiatives you discussed yesterday." Her heart skipped a beat. She had already felt grateful for everything that had happened, and now there was the possibility of even more support. She thanked him and promised to be ready for the meeting. She felt a mixture of anticipation and nervousness, but deep down she knew she could handle it. She had faced emergencies before, taken decisive action when lives were at stake, and proven to herself that she was capable of extraordinary things. The meeting was held in a quiet, comfortable office. She was introduced to several people who had heard about her work and were eager to support her initiatives. Some were philanthropists, others were leaders in healthcare organizations, and a few were community advocates. They listened as she explained her vision for expanding medical programs, training workshops, and outreach initiatives. Her voice was steady, her ideas clear, and her passion undeniable. By the end of the meeting, she had received not only financial support but also valuable advice, connections, and encouragement.